Okay, so I'm not long back from the NLP Superfest in Melbourne, Australia, which for me was a wonderful weekend. I really enjoyed it, met some fantastic people, really great presenters there, and some highly skilled individuals. Now, for me, that was an interesting thing to go back in and be immersed in this NLP Superfest, see these people doing this stuff, because NLP is my background, NLP is where I come from, but I haven't really thought about things in terms of NLP for a number of years now, maybe even sort of 4 or 5 years. You know, it's that long since I've done much with NLP, I suspect. So it was interesting to go back in and be reconnected with something that was so significant to me and really did change and transform my life. And it fired up my appreciation once again for what NLP is and what NLP does and what a powerful set of tools have been developed there. And it also highlighted for me quite clearly what NLP isn't, what it's not, what it doesn't do. And this is what I want to talk about in this video. I've called the video The Shell and the Nut. And it's after a story that Milton Erickson, after Richard Bandler and John Grinder had gone in and modeled out what he was doing in terms of his language and communication. And they created this excellent model, the Milton Model, which is a phenomenal and powerful communication model, powerful language model, you know, language use model. And afterwards, Erickson, who actually endorsed the first book, I seem to remember, is alleged to have said, those Bandler and Grinder boys really cracked the nut on my work. The trouble is they took the shell but left the nut. So what might Erickson mean by that? Now, if you want to understand this, it's worth looking at what NLP is about, the NLP ethos, where it comes from. Now, the ethos of NLP, it comes from initially, you've got Richard Bandler and you've got Frank Puslik. And you've got these guys who are doing Gestalt therapy, but they're not really come into Gestalt therapy through the standard approach. What they've really done is they're both a couple of guys who are really good at paying attention to what's going on and copying it. So they got very effective at doing Gestalt therapy. And in their opinion, all of the ideas, the theoretical frameworks around Gestalt therapy didn't really help people do Gestalt therapy. Because what they came to believe was it wasn't how you thought about things, it wasn't your understanding, it wasn't any of that. What counted is what you did. What were the effective behaviors of the therapist? What did they do and when did they do it? That was the other thing, paying attention to when they did it. So they got curious about this and they get this guy John Grinder in, a linguistics professor, to say, well, you're good at patterns of language and communication, so what do you think we're doing? And John Grinder joined the team and it all grew from there. But they built these models. They were trying to do something really specific here and they succeeded. They did a really good job. What they wanted to do was get rid of the what they would call the theology, I guess, you know, all the stories, the theoretical frameworks, all of that. Just build these models of behavior and communication. And the idea was that people would be able to follow those models, follow the rule structures within those models and get the same results as great therapists like Virginia Satir or Fritz Perls, for example. And I think they did an awesome job. I think they really succeeded in many ways in doing what they wanted to do, in mapping out the surface level behaviors, you know, the actual behaviors where the rubber meets the road, what was done, when it was done, all of that. Except, of course, you ever seen anyone sit down having learnt the meta model and do effective change work with anybody? Just following the basic rules of the meta model as it's kind of laid out in those early books or in 1,000,000,001 you know, NLP Made Easy books, including Frank Puslik's book, The Magic of NLP Demystified. You know, you go in there, you follow that, you're probably not going to get really too effective results doing your change work, just following that surface model. So it doesn't quite work. And they did the same thing with Milton Erickson. They went in there and they looked at Erickson's behaviors, they looked at Erickson's communication, and they mapped and they modeled that out. What does Erickson do? And they built this wonderful model, the Milton Model, an exquisite model. I love the Milton Model. I've learned so much from it and it informs my communication in everyday life, not just in the work that I do. But again, no one's going to go away and use the Milton Model and do work like Milton Erickson, because it's just a communication model. It's just a way of using language and communication. It doesn't tell you anything about what to use it for. You see, Erickson was a guy who was grounded in his understanding of human beings and human life. And that's where he came from. And he sat down with his clients. He would be listening to them. He would be paying attention to them. And his aim was to get mind shifts happening within them. Shifts in understanding, shifts in perspectives that would lead to shifts in behavior, how they engage with life and the results they got in life. That's what Erickson was doing. Erickson was as much a detective as he was a communicator, paying attention to what's going on in this person's reality and how it might be shifted in useful ways. Now, to do that, this is the nut. This is the nut. Again, you get, I've absolutely no doubt, and I was speaking very briefly to Richard Bolstad, who's a great guy, by the way, and a very, very capable NLPer and change work practitioner. And I said, Richard, how did you get into NLP? And he said, well, he was a Gestalt therapist, and learning NLP massively improved his efficacy as a Gestalt therapist. But that isn't because NLP is better than Gestalt. It's because he had, I would suggest, maybe Richard's going to watch this and disagree with me, I would suggest he had the nut, the deeper grounding that he got from his Gestalt understanding, and being able to apply the NLP distinctions and understandings, the models around communication stuff, he got a lot better at doing what he was doing. Because think about the metaphor, okay? The shell and the nut, they are a unit. The shell is not superfluous in that unit. The shell is like a delivery mechanism. The nut is the thing that holds the potential that will grow into new life, new possibility, will create something in the world that wasn't there before. That's all about the nut. But the shell is essential to get the nut to where it needs to be, to get the nut into the fertile soil without it being eaten or rotted away first, you see. So it's an essential thing, having a better quality shell, a better delivery mechanism, better communication skills. That is awesome stuff. It's exquisite stuff, but on its own, if you don't have a sense of what you're doing with it, it's somewhat lacking. Now, I think NLP's strength is exactly in what it's set out to do. Modeling communication patterns, modeling behaviors. I think that's its strength. I think it's absolutely gold. I think when it comes to looking at the nut, I think it downplays that side. It downplays wisdom. It downplays understanding. It downplays various inner stances, ways of seeing the world, ways of understanding human beings, deeper psychological models, this kind of thing. It underplays that stuff, and I think that's fine. I think it's absolutely fine. I think it's a good thing that NLP specializes in what it does, but I think it's a bad thing when that is claimed to be the be-all and end-all. You need the shell and you need the nut. They create a functional unit. So if I were to if I were to pan my camera around now, you'd see my bookcases here in the room, and you'd see all kinds of books, and some of the books you'd see would be books on skills. They'd be books on language skills. They'd be books on how to do hypnosis and how to do change work, clinical communication tools and skills. Right? Lots of books on that kind of stuff. Right here on the table, I've got volume 2 of 6 Blind Elephants by Steve and Andreas. Okay, volume 1 and volume 2. Excellent books about technical skills, about how to maneuver within exchanges. Really useful stuff. That's the shell. It's useful. Get exquisite with that. It's extremely useful. I've also got books on, here's a perfect example. Here I've got Straight Line Leadership by Dusan Jukic. This is a book of distinctions, powerful distinctions, ways of looking at the world and understanding life that give you more power and more ability to make a difference in the world. This is powerful stuff. This is like nut, okay? This is wisdom, this is understanding, this is deep stuff. This is delivery stuff. The two work hand in hand. So many people neglect the wisdom side. In other traditions, they neglect the skills side. I've heard teachers who have real profound messages to deliver and doing it in pretty shocking ways as well. So the two are important. So what I'm saying to you, I'm extending an invitation to you here, because I know this is on Hypnosis Without Trance. This video is going out on Hypnosis Without Trance. In the future, I am going to be teaching all the stuff around skills for hypnotic facilitation, skills for powerful communication, all of that kind of thing. Skills, which is the shell. That sounds superficial, but it's not. The shell is an important part. It's how you deliver what you want, okay? It's how you deliver the shifts you want to be happening in the world. It's important stuff. All of that stuff is going to carry on the Hypnosis Without Trance blog. If that is your interest, this is the blog to pay attention to. The nut, the understandings, the grounding, the inner stances, the ways of seeing the world that are useful versus the ways of seeing the world that are not, the styles of thinking that are useful versus those that are not, all of that deeper, richer stuff, the nut. That's going to be being blogged about. I'm going to be blogging about that via my Reality Shaper blog. Reality Shaper, Live as a Creative Force. Now, different people may have different interests. Some people may be more interested in the skills and the communication stuff and all of that. That's absolutely fine. Some people are more interested in the kind of deep wisdom and philosophy and ways of understanding human beings and life and all of that. I'm going to invite you to be open to both, because when you're open to both, when you embrace both, you bring the nut and the shell together. You bring the nut and the shell together, and that is how it is meant to be. That is how it is powerful. So yeah, those two blogs are going forward. Those two blogs are going ahead. I'm putting this out now. As I'm putting this out, incidentally, there are 3 places left on the Hypnosis Skills Bootcamp. There will be no nut in that. That will be all skills or skills drilling. If you want to check out the page, I'll put a link below here. Grab hold of that. In the meantime, if you have any questions about either the shell or the nut, please do find a way to ask, either on the Hypnosis Without Trance blog or the realityshaper.com blog, or of course videos from both will appear on my YouTube channel, which is James Tripp TV.